Okay, my aim in this presentation is to give you 10 tips in 10 minutes so you can score max marks in question 3. Now, wouldn't that be useful? Let's start. The exam is still 2 hours long and still has 3 questions, but it's now worth 80 marks. That breaks down the timings for each question as follows. Question 1 should take approximately 45 minutes, question 2 approximately 37.5 minutes, and question 3 the same. Personally, I'd keep the timing simple and call it 40 minutes per question, but that's up to you. This brings us to tip 1. Write the timings at the top of each section. If your exam starts at 8 o'clock, for example, then question 1 should be done by 8:40, question 2 by 9:20, and the whole thing by 10 o'clock. Having the timings at the top of each section means that you can glance at the clock, look at your timings, and check you're on track to finish on time. Write them there at the start of the exam. Tip 2. Know what you can get marks for. The examiner can only award marks for things that are on the mark scheme. So know what's on the mark scheme. Question 3, which is what we're dealing with here, has both a reading and a writing rubric. For the top reading mark, all 3 bullet points must be covered. There must be supporting detail for each bullet point, and ideas must be developed. We'll cover exactly what that means when we look at the examples. Tip 3. Highlight the bullet points you have to answer. I like to use red, orange, green because it's an easy sequence to remember. All the information in the text for the bullet point 1 will be highlighted in red. All the information for bullet point 2 will be highlighted in orange, and for bullet point 3, green. Tip 4. Read the bullet points very carefully. They usually ask you to identify more than one thing. The example here is from the specimen paper on Cambridge website. Each bullet point has 2 parts to it. Furthermore, bullet point 1 is really tricky. The second part asks you about your journeys through the city that night. Journeys are plural, but the text barely mentions the first journey, so you could easily overlook that. Read the bullet points carefully so you know exactly what information you're looking for in the text. Tip 5. Read the text carefully. Highlight information for all 3 bullet points. This is perhaps the most important step, and it should take you about 12 to 15 minutes to complete. That leaves you about 20 to 25 minutes to write your answer. This is where you make your money, as they say where I come from. If you don't find the details in the text, you won't write them in your answer. So go through the text several times and highlight all the information that relates to each bullet point. Bullet points 1 and 2 should be relatively straightforward. It will be mainly explicit information that you're identifying. It's a useful idea to practice jotting down a keyword that the various details relate to as you go along. For example, I have noted silent in silent, deserted, dark. This will come in handy when you come to write up your answer. Bullet point 3, tip 6, will require you to infer meaning. They call it the discriminator. It's a bit like the Terminator. It determines who's going to get into the top band and who isn't. Whereas bullet point 1 and 2 are mainly about finding explicit information, bullet point 3 is mainly about finding implicit information. The specimen paper asked, what were your reasons for taking your granddaughter out that night, and what do you think she gained from the experience? But nowhere in the text does it mention the grandfather's reasons for taking her out that night, nor what he thinks his granddaughter got out of the experience. The mistake many students make here is to invent something, but that won't score you marks. You must find the implicit information in the text. That might mean you have to go over the text several times to work out, in this case, what his motives might be and what his granddaughter got out of it. On this example, I have highlighted them in green. Remember, the mark scheme said all 3 bullet points must be well covered to get into the top band, so you must find several pieces of information. If you don't get all of the information, then it's likely you will only achieve band 2 or 3 depending on how much you have inferred. If you miss out the bullet point altogether, then you can only achieve band 4, up to 6 out of 15 marks, because the descriptor says one of the bullet points might not be addressed. So go back and find the implicit information. I'll give you an example of how I answered this one in a couple of slides' time. Tip 7. Know the format for the text types. When it comes to writing the task, the exam board can ask you to write a letter, a report, a news article, a magazine article, an interview, a speech. So you'll need to know at least the basic rules for each text type. Cambridge have helpfully provided some advisory sheets, but you can look up this information online. When you write up your ideas, 15 marks are available from your reading. That is the information you've extracted from the text, but there are also 10 marks available for your writing. Descriptor 1 requires effective register for audience and purpose. This means you have to judge the correct level of formality depending on whom you are writing or speaking to, and the purpose of the communication. This could be to inform, advise, persuade. You are also asked to use effective or interesting language. Again, your language will need to suit the character who is speaking or writing, the audience, and the purpose. The fourth descriptor, structures and sequence are sound throughout. There are only ever 3 bullet points to answer, so if you answer them in order, that will sequence and structure your response for you. Right, let's take a look at an example of how to write the information up. Tip 8. Follow the formula. Make a general point, include supporting details from the text, add some development, however brief, to those details. Remember, I jotted down dark, deserted, silent as general points on an earlier slide, so this is where I use that information. In this example, I have put the general point in black, the details from the text in red, and the development in blue to make it easy for you to follow what I am doing. So let's take a look. It was silent. That's my first general point. And then a reference to trams and cars. These are details from the text. And then, but there was nothing. That's my development. As simple as that. Next general point. It was strange and beautiful. Then my detail from the text to support the point. A big moon hung in the sky. And then some development. It seemed to have sucked all of the chaos out of the city, at least for the moment. And then on to the next general point. I felt excited. And then the supporting details. I was smiling to myself and my hands were trembling. And the development, it was such an unusual gift I was about to share. And so on. I need to include the general point, dark, and the details I found in the text to support it, and the point, it was deserted too, and any other general points and details I have found before I move on to the next bullet point. Tip 9. Tick off general points as you include them in your response. Follow the same formula in the second bullet point. A general point. Natalia was a little annoyed with me to start off with, followed by some supporting detail. She was lagging behind, followed by some development. I think she was grumpy that I had arrived home late. I then added some more supporting detail about her being annoyed. When she did catch up, she threatened not to go on unless I told her where we were heading. Followed by some development. Teenagers can be so irritable. Don't you just know that? It's their hormones. Remember, I'm writing in character, and in my opinion that's the sort of thing a friendly doctor might say. Lower down the paragraph, you can see in black font I've added another general point from the text. When we did see the elephant, the moment was special. Followed by a detail. We held hands. And then some development. Watched it for what seemed an age. I don't think either of us will forget what we shared. Followed by another general point. She was astonished. She didn't know what to make of it at first. Followed by a supporting detail. I could tell as she didn't say anything. Followed by a brief development, which was unusual. You get the idea. Just follow the formula until you've included all of your general points, supporting detail, and added some development. It's that simple. We're almost done. Bullet point 3 is the one where you have to use the points you have inferred throughout the text to answer it. They're dotted about in various paragraphs. You just have to find them. When it comes to responding to the bullet point though, use the same formula as before. General point, supporting detail, development. Here's what a response might look like to the question. The first reason I inferred from the text, I wanted to give her something special for her birthday, an experience we would both remember for a long time to come, is followed by supporting detail, stealing out of our house in the dead of night to watch an elephant, and then development. That was a special gift. I then make my next general point. I wanted her to know there was hope. I support it with detail. She could see that in that beautiful creature following the soldier, and then some brief development. It had hope, it had faith and hope, and was determined to stay alive. And then I continue with another general point, supporting detail and development, and so on, until I've written them all down. The question's not difficult, but tip 10, practice makes perfect. Use past paper sites like Extreme Papers to find past questions, inserts and mark schemes. The current paper 1 question 3 is the same as the old paper 2 question 1, other than the increased mark for writing. You can use them to practice on. I'll put a link in the description box below. So that was useful. How to get max marks on paper 1 question 3. This is Think, Ink. Thanking you.